Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome, everyone, to PSA Northeast. Welcome to our S-Factor, our Speaker Factor regional heats. I had tonight planned to within an inch of its life. It was going to be superb. It still will be superb. It's just totally higgledy-piggledy and out of order now. So we're just going to go with the flow. As you may have heard, one of our three wonderful contestants, Benjamin, is stuck on the train from London. His time keeps going from getting in at 8, 20 to 8, 7:15. So we've just said that sadly he's not going to be able to compete tonight because we want to make sure that our other contestants can crack on and make the most of their evening. So we'll make sure that he gets to compete somewhere else. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming. This is an amazing, amazing turnout. Looking around the table and seeing so many familiar faces, so many new faces, guests, friends, random people who've just turned up who might sort of be world-class speakers who've just... It's like... So you might have realised that I'm actually not Dave Algio. I am not your president. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michelle. I'm Dave's vice president. I'm still a really new speaker. I'm only about a year into my speaking career. So to have this many people in the room, to have so many amazing speakers, to see the support is one, vaguely terrifying, and two, an absolute joy. Thank you all so much for coming along. Okay. What's my 10 for, Nigel? Thank you so much. Along with our S-Factor, I'm so blooming hot, you know, honest to goodness, and we're recording this, we're going global next week, I will explain. As well as our Speaker Factor competition tonight, we've got extra goodies for you. We have got, if I say international speakers, that would be no word of a lie. Speaking for you after our break, we have the wonderful Zanelle, who has come from South Africa to speak to us. So she literally come from half the world away, has come all the way to Newcastle to speak to us. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what Zanelle's going to do for us later on. I also think it would be no word of a lie if I said our special guest speaker, who we have kept completely under wraps and we haven't shouted about, Mr. Jeff Ram, is also an international speaker. For whilst he hails from Bolden, we very rarely find him at home. He's quite often halfway across the world. So we're so lucky and so blessed to have him with us tonight. And the guys will be speaking for us towards the end of the evening. Also, something really important that we have extra special. I'm trying to outdo Dave, you see, as Vice President when he's not here. We have got Ian, our very own Ian Farah, who runs the Industry Angel podcast. That's the UK's #1 business podcast. And I asked Ian a few weeks ago if he would, at the start of his podcast, give our contestants a shout out. I've got squeaky floor syndrome. If he would give our contestants a shout out for being so brave and wonderful to get involved and come and speak at S-Factor. And he said, Michelle, I can go one better than that. Why don't I come along and record the whole evening and we'll make it into an Industry Angel podcast. So as far as I am aware, we are the only PSA region in the country who are recording their heats and who are going to have next week their PSA heats go global. So Claire and Diane, okay, it's just the two of you tonight. We can only have a winner and a runner-up. But it doesn't matter what order that comes in, ladies, because you are going to be winners already and you are going to be on Ian's podcast. And Ian, thank you so much. It was an amazing, amazing gesture. Thank you. So what I would like to do is invite up to the front Gillian Fortune, because Gillian was last year's PSA North East Regional Heat winner, and she went down to the national semi-finals and did us proud, and you've worked your socks off to make tonight happen. So it seems only fair that you tell everyone about S Factor, lay out the rules, and then invite each of our contestants to compete. Thank you, Gillian.
Okay, so some of you know about Speaker Factor, some of you don't. So Speaker Factor is our Professional Speakers Association annual competition. It's a national competition, but to get to the national competition in October, you have to get through the regional heat. So this is our regional heat tonight, and each of the 14 regions has a heat and puts forward their regional winner to go to the national competition. Speaking, a lot of people have this fear of public speaking. It's one of the key dreads in life. Speaking can be scary. Speaking in front of your peers, even more scary. Speaking to be judged, off the scale scary. So when we do Speaker Factor, I can honestly say, having been there last year, and you were there as well, Michelle, is to speak to be judged. By entering this competition, you've already won something. Because this is really scary. To put yourself up there in front of your peers and to be judged, you're already winners. So that's really important to say. The other thing is, it's a 5-minute speaking competition. So you've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not a long time. Unless you're up here speaking and being judged on speaking. And then 5 minutes, believe me. And then Ian is going to give you the 4-minute warning, at which point you'll think that can't have been 4 minutes gone already. So it's either a lifetime or it's just going to fly over. It's being judged, and we have 3 judges, and our head judge tonight is Jeff Ram. We also have Neville Tynemouth, who is our judge, and Michelle Rose as our vice president. So there are 3 judges. So, and Nigel Risner, who is our guest judge. Right. People are judged on 4 criteria. The first one is stagecraft. 20% is judged on stagecraft. There's delivery at 20%, script at 20%, and bookability on 40%. Okay, so that's what you're being judged on. The entrants, we've got Claire Devani Glynn, who's going to be going first. Then we've got Diane Sharp. Unfortunately, as we know, Benjamin Drury. I'll keep looking at that clock, it's wrong. Benjamin Drury is still on the train, and we've already kind of started our competition here. So unfortunately, it's unlikely that Benjamin is going to compete. They've all had the crib sheet that we did for new contestants for this year. You've all had that, and so you know the rules, you know your 5 minutes, you know about your props, and you know that it is 5 minutes, okay? But there is, whilst Ian's going to give you the 4-minute nod, there will not be a get big hook that is going to then drag you off if you go over your 5 minutes, okay? So don't worry about that. And if you are ready, Claire, I would like to introduce our first Speaker Factor competition, a competitor for the North East region. And I'd like to introduce you to Claire Devani Glynn.
So my story starts 12 years ago on a Tuesday morning in January, very, very icy morning. And I got into my car and I drove 26 miles south, and I pulled upon a drive and I picked up 2 baby boys and a suitcase. The day before, I'd made a solemn promise to a very lovely lady that no matter what I saw in the rearview mirror that day, I could not stop the car to help. I had to keep on driving under any circumstance. So as I pulled away that day and looked in the mirror and saw a collapse onto the drive, utterly bereft, I didn't pause. I kept on driving with my boys. And that really surprised me that I was able to do that. But what shocked me when I looked in the mirror was when I caught my own eye, because just like that, I was a mother. And there's not many journeys where the outward leg, you drive and you're a 31-year-old woman whose only dependent is a dog. And within the hour, you're a 31-year-old woman with 2 babies, 10 months old and 22 months old. So it was a pretty extraordinary journey. If anyone had told me on that day that in a year's time to that very week, on another icy January day, I would have been strapping my little girl into my car and driving the 16-mile journey south back with her, oh, how I would have laughed. But I think we kind of guess how that went. So a decade into my journey, it's safe to say that my life was tipped on its head and vigorously shaken. And I soon discovered that only the things that were rock solid were able to hang on in there. My marriage and my career as a long-term civil servant were 2 things that didn't make the cut. But I also discovered on that decade that followed that I'd accidentally became an expert. I learned during that 10 years everything there was to learn about developmental trauma. I learned everything that there was to learn about attachment theory. I learned everything that was to learn about children like mine. It was a very, very tough 10 years. And I think what I'm trying to say is I pulled the positives out of it. I found a way to parent my children in an extraordinary way, because they are extraordinary children. But what I realised was I was looking for, it was as if you needed a user manual or an A to Z guide, because during some of the darkest days I would joke that you need a user manual to be able to raise children like mine, and you didn't know what you were meant to be doing. So I searched for it. I knew that I wish somebody had told me about things like innocent trips to the optician, for example, where you're in a tiny room with a stranger and your child, and a routine question is, tell me a little bit about family history, medical history. Now, you've got 2 options. If you don't know it, you either lie, or you have to say in front of your child, I don't know enough about that to be able to answer. So it's a very, very difficult situation, re-traumatising your children all the time. I wish that somebody had just told me about the fact that the things that you expect to be wonderful and exciting, like holidays and days out and Christmas, quite often for children living with trauma, end up in absolute disaster, leaving a child with distress and a parent who think they can't do it properly. So 10 years down the line, I am an expert by experience. I live, eat and breathe my children, and my passion is trauma, which I know makes me sound a little bit odd, but I work with organisations and teach them how to be trauma informed, because it's capable of changing the world. And I think that my question to everybody is, if you knew about something that everyone was capable of doing, that nobody needed specialist training to do, and it was capable of changing entire societies, would you be able to stop talking about it to anyone who would listen? No, me neither.
Simon says, put your hands on your heads. Simple Simon says, stand up, sit down. Simple Simon, a childhood game that is an early introduction into leadership. And boy, as society, are we obsessed with leaders, both the good and the bad. Be it from Winston Churchill to General Custer, Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple, to Kenneth Lay, CEO of Enron. And yet, in order to be a leader, by definition, you need followers. And in fact, even those of us who operate as leaders in one area of our lives, perhaps captain of the cricket team, will often act as a follower in another area of our life, perhaps at work. And the world will always have far more followers than leaders. And yet there is an obsession with the development of leadership and leadership skills. If you Google leadership, 4.4 billion responses. Followership, 242,000. Now, I always wanted to be a leader. Some would call it bossiness, I would say enthusiasm. It even chose my career for me. I became an accountant because more finance directors became managing directors than any other profession. And that's when I found myself, at 33, the managing director of mechatronics. And I have in front of me 175 employees on the shop floor in Bishop Auckland. And that's when I had my biggest leadership revelation. You see, at that very moment, I had become both the most powerful and the least powerful person in the organisation. People always push back at that. Least powerful? Well, as most powerful, I could now decree and say anything I liked. But it was everyone else in that room who decided whether any of those things really happened. And I realised that the future of this business would not lie in my amazing leadership skills, but actually in our ability to develop, engage and inspire exceptional followership. So what does exceptional followership look like? Well, first of all, we need followers to assume responsibility. They don't need micromanaging. They are self-directed. They will make decisions. Now, as leaders, what does that mean we need to do? We need to ensure that we empower them, that we delegate, that we create a culture where it's okay to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Secondly, we need followers who are prepared to challenge, openly air their views, tell us when they think we're wrong, advise us when they think we need to do something different. As leaders, we need to ensure that we create a no-blame culture, that there is productive conflict. It's okay to disagree. Finally, we need followers who champion change. Cotter says that after you've decided why you need to change, the second thing you need to do is create a guiding coalition. Bring people together from across the organisation as a group who will lead and make that change happen. That's the power of followership. But it's interesting because those key followership skills, assuming responsibility, challenging the status quo, and championing change, are also the key skills of a good leader. And so ultimately, followership is not about a person, it's about a role. And what distinguishes followers from leaders is not intelligence or character, but the role they play. Leaders are only ever as effective as their ability to engage followers. Without followership, there is no leadership.
This, for me, is how PSA works. So a few weeks ago, there was a young lady in South Africa was coming over to the northeast of England to do a talk at Durham University. She gets in touch with PSA UK headquarters and says, is there a PSA group in the northeast? Don't really know where the northeast of England is, but is there a group there? And they say, yes, there is. Get in touch with Dave. He's the president. So Zanelle gets in touch with Dave. Dave says, we would love to have you, but I'm going out for my birthday, so get in touch with Michelle. She'll look after you. So we were absolutely blessed to have Zanelle coming tonight to see us, but just as a visitor. But I thought, can I be cheeky? Can I ask her to do her S Factor talk? But as we say up here, shy bairns getting out. Okay, shy children getting no sweets, shy bairns getting out. So we asked, and I feel absolutely, well, just tonight's just been wonderful from start to finish, but I'm so pleased, Zanelle, that you're coming to talk to us, so to do your winning S Factor South Africa talk. Again, I think we may be the only PSA region in the country who are going to have an international S Factor winner talking for us. So, let me introduce you. Zanelle is an entrepreneur, author, and teacher. She is also a multi-award-winning international speaker who assists institutions stay relevant in a rapidly evolving world. with her winning talk from 2019's South Africa's Speaker Factor competition. I am genuinely delighted to welcome to our Newcastle stage Zanelle Njapa. Thank you very much.
And just to clear the air, it's just one speaking award. We had a presentation about smoke and mirrors during our convention earlier this year, so I'm very aware of that, and I wouldn't want anything to come across incorrectly. All right, do me a favor. Close your eyes. Don't worry, it's a safe space. Now start to think about your job. Think about the moments when you are doing your absolute best at your job, when you are absolutely, as they say, killing it. And now, think about a robot doing your job better than you have ever known yourself to do your job. Not needing maternity leave, not needing paternity leave, and certainly not needing a coffee break. Open your eyes. Scary. It's scary, isn't it? Well, luckily for you, you share that fear with more than half of the world's population when it comes to thinking about the fourth industrial revolution. According to the World Economic Forum, more than 5 million jobs stand to be lost due to the redundance that artificial intelligence will introduce to our job market. You see, I'd like to think that when I said, think about your job, most of our faces lit up, but I was the one who had my eyes open. You all had your eyes closed. And I could actually see some of our faces changed. But even though we don't appreciate our jobs, we don't want to lose them. And least of all, to some cold, heartless robot. Not the cold, heartless colleague you just thought about that always gets on your nerves in the office. Not him. So what do? What's the solution? How do we ensure that as individuals and as institutions, we stay relevant in an ever-changing world without actually losing ourselves? So the World Economic Forum introduces 10 key skills to make sure that you stay sustainable and relevant as an institution well into 2020. You see, I like the World Economic Forum, but I've got a better idea. Did you know that all you need to do in order to not only survive, but thrive in the fourth industrial revolution is something you can learn from your children? That your children actually do better than you because you've somehow just forgotten it. There are 3 key traits that children embody better than adults do. And I suggest you go back home and you ask your children to reteach you. 1, playfulness. 2, honesty. And 3, inquisitiveness. Let's jump right in. First one, playfulness. Put your hand up if you've ever caught a child playing with something that's not a toy. Put your hand up if you're the child that plays with something that's not a toy. Don't be ashamed, be honest. It happens, right? But what most of us as adults don't understand is that play actually encourages creativity, innovation, and vital problem-solving skills that are key when it comes to innovation. We need to learn to play with our products. 2, honesty. As a teacher, I changed my hair once. And this one little boy who I absolutely adore, I no longer teach him, he's now moved on to the 6th grade. He came up to me and he said, Miss Njapa, that hairstyle, it doesn't actually suit you. I think you should go back to the old hairstyle you had. Ouch, right? So after I'd wiped the tear from my eye, I was confronted with the fact that children are brutally honest. But that's what you need to do if you want to chuck the stuff that's not working for the stuff that is working. Someone earlier spoke about the importance of honesty, especially when trying to innovate. How in the world do you move on with products that are not working all because you're afraid to hurt the feelings of your colleagues? Be honest with what's not working in order to actually exchange it for what is working. And then lastly, number 3, inquisitiveness. Children never stop asking questions, even to the point where we want them to actually just zip it, because they're embarrassing us. They ask the worst questions, on and on and on. Are we there yet? I mean, that's one of the most famous ones. Why can't I put my finger on the hot stove? But actually, that's something we all need to be doing. We must remember that answers don't come unless questions go out. Our institutions and us as individuals need to be asking more questions. Why is it not working? Why is it working? Who is making it work? And how can we do better? And so in conclusion, if we want to make sure that we work with our cold, heartless counterparts rather than against them, and stay human in a world that is consistently changing into cold, heartless monsters, we need to, 1, always play with our products and with each other. And 2, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. And then lastly, we must never, ever stop asking questions. Thank you.